Hi, everybody. You are listening to Judging Meghan with your host, Meghan Judge. I wish I could start off a podcast really happy and cheerful. And I don't want you guys to come here and constantly hear me complaining or, talking about what's going on in our country or the world. But today I have to bring this up. And this is going to probably be a tough episode, but I think this is a really, really important episode. And so I'm just going to start here. Last week with the shootings, or I think it's almost 2 weeks now. It's been almost 2 weeks. I have two kids in Catholic school. I talk about this, and I had to send one of them to school last week and was a wreck. And all I could think about was, the church situation, like going to church and those parents and picking up their kids and not knowing what happened to their children. And I don't know how many episodes I've done about school shootings. My friend Mary Hollis, is traumatized for the rest of her life because she was in one of the original school shootings and lost her best friend Paige. And every time one of these shootings happens, there's finger pointing, nothing is done. And my guest today is a mom too. So this something has to give. And we shouldn't have to live in a country where we're constantly worried about our children having to go to school and drills being the norm. When I ask Ella, my youngest, about drills and what it feels like, she just goes, "Oh yeah, that's just what we do. And, it's okay, but why is this okay?" I mean, I was reading something about somebody sending their kids now with shields, bulletproof shields to school. That this shouldn't be a thing. So I know I've had politicians on the podcast in the past. This should not be a left or a right issue. This is an issue, a humanity issue. And what are we teaching our children? What are we bringing up? Why can't we do something about this? Mental health is clearly my platform. It's what I care about. I'm just at the point of at a loss. I think all of us are. And I just wish somebody would do something about this because we're cheating our children. That's all I'll say. Christine Magiera is a mother. She's looking at me like, oh God, what did I get myself into? Christine is a mother. She's an advocate. She's also a survivor. Welcome to the podcast. I'm very honored to have you on today.
Thanks so much, Meghan. I appreciate you spending your time talking to me, letting me share my story with you.
So here's the thing. I got your application. And I believe in signs. I'm all about signs. Okay. So I'm about to do an episode with a mother in a couple weeks that lost her son in a drunk driving accident. I don't really get applications all the time from people that have either been a survivor like you or lost children in drunk driving accidents. It's not like something that happens all the time. So when I got it back to back like that, I said, that's some kind of sign. That's weird that would happen when I'm about to do a different one. So we're going to share your story today, but I first just want to find out a little bit about you. I know you're a mom. Tell me where you're from. Tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm a mom of 3 boys. I have a 23-year-old, a soon-to-be 20-year-old, and a 16-year-old. And we live in northern Michigan. I'm very active. We like to do things outdoors, be on the water. I love to run. And I was a stay-at-home mom for about 20 years until, the boys get old enough and decided to dip my toe back into the workforce. And then a few months later, our car crash happened.
Okay, so let me just say, we're going to get into that, but on a positive note, whatever skincare regime you're doing, I need to know because you look really good. I thought you were like 25. I mean, you look great. So you must have had your children at 10. So that's the happy part of it. You look great. But I want to know a little bit about the accident. So you reached out to me and you told me kind of the backstory of it. But for my listeners, can you kind of share what happened that night?
Yeah, sure. We just passed the 2-year anniversary over the weekend, so I've been thinking about it a lot. And the way the weather is and the lighting outside truly takes me back to that night and that time. It was 2 years ago today. I came home from the hospital. So it's still very fresh in my mind. 2 years ago, we decided last minute to go get ice cream. As a family, my middle son was working at a local ice cream shop that's very well loved in the community. And we hadn't been for a while. It was Thursday of Labor Day weekend, and my youngest son said, "We haven't been in a while. We should go get some Moomer's ice cream." And I was kind of on the fence because I had had a glass of wine while I was preparing dinner and about a half a glass after dinner. So I wouldn't be able to go unless our oldest son could drive us because I had drunk. So last minute, my oldest stopped. He was in the middle of a project and he was able to take a break, and he said, "Sure, let's go." So we all piled in the car. And we turned out of our neighborhood. The crash site is maybe a quarter of a mile from our driveway. So our neighbors across the street actually saw us leave our driveway and heard the sound of the impact of the crash. They caught it on their Ring device. And so going from my perspective, we turned out of the neighborhood. I was talking to my youngest son. I was sitting in the back seat. He was sitting in the front passenger seat. It just kind of worked out that way. Typically, I would have sat in the front seat. And actually, that was a little topic of conversation before we left. I kind of knew my oldest son would say, "Hey, you sit in the back. Let mom sit in the front." But I said, "It's okay. We're just going. It's 7 minutes up the road. It's not a long drive. It's okay." And so then we turned out of the neighborhood. I wasn't paying any attention. I never saw her coming. And life went into slow motion for me. I remember seeing my hand slowly going across my face like this. And then we stopped and life went back into regular motion. The horn was blaring. And I was very confused. I had no idea what had happened.
And let me ask you, because I know you had said, not on the podcast, but prior, you sat in the back, right? And you thought you were used to sitting in the front. Was that kind of one of those things? I'm a mom. I know I hate my kids sitting in the front seat because they always say, "Don't sit in the front. Like it's the worst place you can sit." So I still have, my oldest, she's 15, she sits in the front, but it's something I always think about. So I wonder if that was just like an instinctual thing that you were like, "Oh, but we're only going 7 minutes away," or however many minutes away. And then people always think, "Oh, we're only going right up the street, so nothing could happen." And the majority of accidents actually happen very close to home, they say. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. And, the only thing I can think is, I wasn't thinking of it in the safety sense. It was more of my oldest son wanted like mom to have priority in the seat up front and have the youngest sit in the back. But, turns out I probably would not have survived if I was sitting in that seat because of the amount of damage that the vehicle, our minivan, got in that seat. The other driver was driving a Bronco, Everglades edition. Those are big vehicles. And she hit right on that passenger seat and flipped her Bronco over our minivan, and they landed on their roof. So we came to a rest down in the ditch. There's a bunch of ferns that grow there and like a tree line of pine trees. And we came to rest just before the line of pine trees. And like I said, the horn was blaring. There was what looked like smoke in the air. And my first instinct was to get out to see, what happened and what I could help with. And then I thought that maybe that white was smoke, and maybe the van was going to catch fire. I couldn't open the automatic sliding door. I saw my oldest, who was driving, exit our vehicle, and he went and walked behind me. I didn't know where he went or what he was doing. So I looked behind myself and I saw that our back window was totally blown out. And I looked around and I saw the windshield was caving in, the front passenger window was blown out, and then the rear passenger window was blown out. And so at first I thought maybe somebody was driving, like a jerk, and then my son had to swerve to get out of the way or something.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw all the windows blown out, I thought that something else had happened. I knew that he just didn't swerve out of the way.
Where were you? You clearly were in shock, right? Were you harmed at all, like physically harmed from the accident? Okay, so you were in shock. Okay, and your son that was driving was injured.
He was injured. He had the most minor injuries out of all of us. He had severe, like a burn on his skin from the seatbelt. He had a contusion on his hip. He was a paramedic student at the time and was a first responder at the local fire department. And so he had a pager, like a big bulky pager that he wore like on his belt, on his pants. And so that had jammed into his hip. And so he had a contusion there. But so he had walked behind our van and he had called 911. And then he also called my husband, his father, who we had left sleeping on the couch, thinking, we're just going to get ice cream. It'll just be a little bit. We'll just leave him here sleeping. My husband's the deputy fire chief of the fire station, of the fire department. So he called Dad and said, there's been an accident. It's bad. Don't wait for the tones. And so my husband was the first on the scene. And I haven't told you yet, I saw my youngest son was not responsive after the collision. He was slumped over. His baseball hat that he had on was wedged in between the dashboard and the caving in windshield. He was unconscious and his radius was sticking out of his arm. So I knew that he had a lot going on. My oldest son came back to the car and said, don't let him move his neck. Our youngest kept yelling out these horrible, painful sounds that weren't, in response to anything that he was being asked or anything that we were saying to him. He wasn't responding back to us. So.
Oh, Christine, I'm so sorry. It's like horrible. Even like I see you talking about it, and 2 years is still.
Yeah, it's very fresh.
Very fresh. So
yeah.
I'm so sorry. I can't even imagine hearing about your husband and his being the fire chief sitting on the couch, knowing. I mean, that's the most horrific thing that he's sitting there. What does no tones mean, by the way?
So when someone calls into 911 and lets the dispatcher know of a call, they will tone out or send specific tones to a certain department, and that alerts the first responders and the firefighters who are working there that they have a call. So he told my husband to not wait for the tones, to just come now. Like the tones would be coming. Like he would hear the tones come on his pager, but don't wait.
Got it. Okay. And then, so your son, you're sitting there in shock. Your other son clearly had he had enough within himself to be able to be alert enough to know what to do, where to go. Thank God he was a paramedic in training.
Right.
And then what about the driver?
The driver of the other vehicle?
Yeah. Where was she? It was a she?
It was a she.
Okay.
A she. I didn't know much about what was going on at that time.
Because you were in shock. Yeah. Okay.
And they were, I think my oldest son said that he had kind of asked because, our collision made a very loud sound. So people who live around the area came to help, and they directed traffic. They helped in lots of different ways. And so I remember once the responders started to arrive, he asked them, if they needed any help, but they had minor injuries. She had her daughter in the car at the time, her 13.
And how old was the daughter?
13 at the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we had been treated, my husband, I saw him poke his head in the driver's side door and his eyes were wide, and he said, "I'm going to get Nickel out." He's our youngest son is named Nicholas, and we call him Nickel as a nickname. And so my oldest son got the lights, because we left the house at like 8:40 p.m. So it was starting to get dark. So they had to light up the scene, and he had to use the jaws of life to cut the door off, because it was so much pressed into. He can give you a much better description. I don't understand that part, but the door was like collapsed in on our son, so he had to get him out. They took him on a stretcher and they left immediately. He went with our son. So his other firefighter comrades helped me out of the vehicle, and I went to the hospital as well. My husband at the time didn't know that our oldest son was driving. He thought I had been driving. He responds to a lot of these types of accidents, and he says it's not uncommon for people to, the driver to be thrown into the back seat or into a different position. So he had assumed that was what had happened. So he didn't realize that our oldest was driving. So once he was told that, then he told our oldest to head to the hospital to get checked out. So.
Okay. So I hear you tell the story, and there's so much like trauma and like picturing a situation like that. I've been in a different kind of situation, but when I lost my best friend, I was in the hospital and they took her off life support. And I just remember like all the faces and walking down that hallway and just like the feeling of shock of how can this be real? This isn't real. Right. And so hearing you tell the story, my heart is with you. I know my listeners must feel the same way if they're listening. But I just have to tell you how brave you are, number one, to come on and share this, because I think the more that you share the story about what you're going to finish kind of explaining, the more you share the story of what happened to your family, the more it might get somebody else to rethink getting behind the wheel after they've been drinking. I interviewed a man, his name's Martin Lockett, several years ago, and he actually killed somebody in a drunk driving accident. And now he spends his life, he spent 20 years in jail. He did his time, but he spends his life kind of talking to kids specifically about what can happen and how your life will be forever changed. But just hearing your end of the story so far, my heart is with you. I'm a mother. I can't even imagine, God forbid, what it would be like to be in that back seat and get out of the car and not have a responsive child. And then, the luck of, thank God your husband was the fire chief. Yeah. And, your son kind of had a history of like knowing what to do and not move your neck and all that stuff. Think about how many people don't know that. Right. So I think there's a reason. I'm spiritual. I don't know if you are, but I kind of believe in those things. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. I can't see. I'm too vain to wear my glasses, but okay. Then you get it. You got what I'm saying. All of those kinds of things to me are always kind of a miracle. I don't know if you agree. Yeah.
I do agree. There are so many factors that led us to that point at that moment that I can't explain. Things like I should have told my son to grab a sweatshirt. I normally would have grabbed my water bottle. Things that we didn't do that could have slowed us up to prevent that from happening. But, also there's a light pole at that corner. We could have hit that light pole. There's just so many things that could have happened. I could have been sitting in the front seat. Just so many that you just can't explain. I've gone through some therapy because it's been a very traumatizing experience.
Yeah.
And since it's so close to home, I drive through that crash site every day, multiple times a day. And that's been very hard.
And there's no way around it, I'm assuming. Like, you just have to be reminded every time you drive.
I mean, you can make a big loop, but, it doesn't make sense to do that.
So what ended up happening to your son? So then he was put in the hospital.
Yeah, so he went to our local hospital, and they determined he had severe internal injuries. He had a level 4 liver laceration and a level 4 spleen laceration. This is not my world. I don't understand these things. So when my husband told me that, I said, well, is that out of 10? I thought 4 out of 10, that's not bad. No, it's out of 5. So he was airlifted to the Children's Hospital in Grand Rapids. This is where it gets emotional because I couldn't go with him.
Take your time. Take your time.
Yeah.
You're really strong and brave, like 2 years out, to be able to even come on and share this. So he was airlifted, and it was the range was a 4 out of a 5, and you knew he was being airlifted, even though you were in shock.
Right.
Yeah.
Things started to come together when, they talk to you in a certain tone in the ER. They kind of like placate you and kind of coddle you a little bit. And when I start, to hear that tone, then I think, okay, this is a lot more serious. Because I just thought, okay, my husband will get him to the hospital and he'll get his arm taken care of. I didn't even think about internal injuries. But they rolled me down to the trauma room to say hi to him. And he didn't even know it was me. He was really thirsty. He was in a lot of pain. And he kind of politely said hi. They said, your mom's here. And he said hi. And then he went back to asking for water. So I knew that, that wasn't who our son really is. He's a real chatty, friendly kid. So he was, in need of some serious help. So they gave him a unit of blood in the ER in the trauma room, and then they had to give him 2 units of blood on the helicopter ride too. And my husband decided he was going to go home, grab some clothes and things, and drive down. It's like a 2.5, 3 hour drive to Grand Rapids. And he saw the helicopter fly above his vehicle as he was headed down. And he knew he had to just put it on cruise control. Otherwise he would, be speeding down there. So, he got to the hospital.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, go ahead. I just was going to ask, it's hard. It's really hard to imagine how hard it was on your husband, like all the guilt that he must have felt for not being in the car. And then also, it's almost like being a heart surgeon, and so your child has to have heart surgery, and exactly what they're about to go through, and
right.
Probably seen this a million times before. So how horrific and awful that was for him.
That was very hard for him. He's seen crashes like this a lot, and there's been no survivors. So I think, having our son still be alive was a miracle. And I think he just didn't know, what the outcome would be if the Children's Hospital would be able to fix what they needed to fix. So miraculously, they didn't need to operate on his liver and his spleen. It was recovering great. He had 4 pelvic fractures as a result of the Bronco hitting our minivan on his side. They do a test to see how much movement there is and if they need to put pins or anything in there to stabilize that. He passed that test. He didn't need hardware in his belly. Prior to him leaving on the helicopter, the hand surgeon up here put his bone back in his arm for the flight. And so then they completely repaired his arm. His radius and his ulna were fractured. And that was the only surgery that he had to have done that night. He doesn't have any hardware at all in his body.
Did his liver and his organs make a full recovery?
Yeah.
Wow. Talk about him. That's a miracle.
Yeah.
Like that in itself is a miracle.
Right.
That's unreal. Okay. So then he's in the hospital. How long was he in the hospital?
He was in the hospital for a week. We didn't know, how his therapy would be, what the requirements were for his pelvic fracture. We thought that he was probably going to be down in Grand Rapids for like 8 or 10 weeks. But the bonus of having a firefighter husband and a paramedic son is they're physically able to care for someone in that position. So our son was in a wheelchair for 8 weeks. He could do toe touch weight only, which is barely nothing. So my son and my husband had to like lift him from the bed to the chair, to the toilet, to the chair, to the bed, for 8 weeks.
Okay. So that's horrific that all of that happened. But here's the part of the story that I think is why listeners need to really listen up and understand what you've gone through since then. So somebody is drunk driving, hits your car, almost kills your son, could have killed all of you. From what I understand, gets away. Can you talk about that piece?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So, let's see. We didn't know a lot of this information until charges were filed. We found out that the driver who hit us, she is the wife of a Michigan State Police trooper, and he came to the scene and promptly put her in his truck. This is what we got from the crash report from the sheriff.
So there was no breathalyzer, nothing? No. Okay.
No.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece is because she has an MSP connection. There were like 5 or 6 other troopers, uniformed troopers on.
What is an MSP? Is that?
Sorry, Michigan State Police troopers.
Okay, sorry. That's me not understanding the lingo.
Yeah,
and my listeners, I'm sure. Sorry.
Right. No,
okay, so they basically kind of took her out.
She
didn't
went.
do the
I understand. It was dark. It was cold. So why stand out there? Put her in the truck. That makes sense in that respect. Sure. The sheriff deputy who ended up being on our case, he was just 5 hours into. He was just 5 hours off of his field training, so he was on his own for 5 hours when our crash happened. So. I think he testified at our trial that he did feel some intimidation just from the presence of the Michigan State Police troopers. Her husband wasn't in uniform. He wasn't working that night. But there were others who were in uniform, who were working that night, who were at our scene. And so he did get, he asked her in the hospital if she would submit to a blood alcohol test. And again, this is in the police report, so I can say this. She looked at her husband. He shook his head no, and she told him no. So our deputy had to go get a warrant for her blood draw. That blood draw happened 4 hours after the crash, and she was at a 0.06.
Okay, for my listeners and myself, what's a 0.06 mean?
Her blood alcohol content was 0.06.
Is that drunk? Like, what is that scale?
Yeah. So, Michigan's law is 0.08 is the legal limit. However, this is 4 hours after, and also
so the alcohol had metabolized into her system by that point. If it was 4 hours, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So if she was at a 0.06 4 hours after, you know that she would be more at the collision time 4 hours prior.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
The hospital did, just through regular routine blood work when you are admitted, they did take a blood sample and tested for alcohol, and it was a 0.125 2 hours after.
Okay, so that's high, correct?
That is high. That's very high.
Okay, see, I don't understand. I know that's probably naive. I don't understand the limits. I should probably learn that.
I think each state is different, but
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was that much higher, and then what happened then? So then you were like, this woman got away with almost killing my family, and the police were covering it up, and then it just turned into a legal battle, or how did
I'm not sure
happen?
That there were, I'm not sure that it was like covered up per se. I think that things were just moving very slowly. I think in her mind, she was hoping that this would just maybe be forgotten about, like life went on. I don't think we got blood results till, it was a while. And I think it was end of October. So our crash happened August 31st. So it was like the end of October when they finally filed charges. And so then she was charged with 2 counts of DUI causing serious injury, and 1 DUI with a minor under the age of 16, because she had her 13-year-old in the car.
That's what I was going to ask next. So she could have killed her 13-year-old child.
Yeah.
What was the 13-year-old okay?
Because she's a minor, we didn't
talk about it.
We didn't get any medical information regarding her. Another interesting twist is we live in a small town. She has 2 daughters, and they both go to my son's school. No. And one of them is the same age as my son, and they've been in the same classes. And I would pass the driver who hit us pretty much daily, driving my son to school while she's coming back from taking her daughter. She had a new Bronco with very distinct lights, like aftermarket lights. So it was very easy to tell that it was her.
Wait a minute. So she was driving again? Nothing happened. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that because, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of floored right now and in shock. Is that because there was no charges pressed against her? And when she saw you, what would she do? What did she do?
I don't know that she knew what my vehicle looked like. I'm not sure.
Because you had a different car at that point. Okay.
Yeah. Because I had a different car.
Did you ever have any kind of interaction with her where you passed her on the street or saw her
in the grocery store? Once.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
okay,
I saw her from afar in the produce section, and I was with my oldest son, and I said, okay, let's go. I wanted to go in an opposite direction. And so, we went around the store and then ended up passing her. And I just physically, I had the hardest time with it. All of the court hearings that we went to, the hardest part about that was just being in the same room as her, because I felt that she didn't really give much weight or validation to what she did. Mm-hmm. She was offered a plea deal of 1 count DUI causing serious injury. She never took it, so we did go to trial. So we had to sit through a trial and testimony. Her husband was put on the witness stand by the prosecution because 6 months after our crash, he made a statement about the timing of her drinking. And so
I'm kind of just not trying to talk over you, but I can't believe it. Also, I'm confused by the fact that, who knows why, but if you almost kill someone's family, don't you say you're sorry or something? You didn't get any kind of apology, nothing.
No. No. In fact, I think she's in denial about it. I don't really understand. Even at the sentencing, her speech said that she felt bad for being distracted while she was driving. That she claims that she was not drunk, that she was distracted. However, it took the jury a very short amount of time to come back with a guilty verdict.
Okay. So this just happened, right? Recently that she got the verdict, because before we started recording, you told me that. So you're allowed to talk about this now. And part of my heart is just broken. Like hearing your story clearly, I'm heartbroken for your family. I'm also so grateful that everyone's okay, but mentally for the rest of your life, you will have PTSD from this. You know, and you know that I'm happy you're in therapy and all the things. So what breaks my heart for your family is that you will have to relive this. And in life, when we make mistakes, I feel sorry for the woman because she needs to realize that even if she doesn't want to admit it, it happened. And so just a sorry something would have been, right? Wouldn't that help all of you in your healing journey?
I think it would. I mean, the guilty verdict certainly did, just because, to feel like, that this really did happen, that this really is the thing, because, it just was kind of like not talked about, and she just was in very not accepting. I'm trying to think of the right word.
No, it's okay. But like also you said you live in a small town. So I'm wondering, did people start taking sides like that? Did that kind of stuff kind of happen? Because that's kind of re-triggering and re-traumatizing for you, feeling like you're not believed or something like that. I just wonder about that piece of it.
I did have some pieces. She was a realtor. So I'm friends with a couple of realtors online and in our community. And I had some people reach out to me and, say that they're sorry for what happened and that, it's not right. So I know, I don't think that really matters to me, because I feel like the truth is out there. But, when she gets out, I'm not sure that I am really going to be able to live here anymore. I can't drive past her anymore. I really can't.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. So what did she end up doing time for what happened?
Yeah, she's in prison.
For how long?
18 months, minimum 18 months up to 60 months. Michigan has truth in sentencing, so she has to serve at least 18 months. And then the possibility for parole is there.
Okay, so this is because this is so fresh, right?
Yeah.
Are you happy that she got the time? Because a lot of people don't, by the way.
Right.
Are you happy? Like, I shouldn't say happy. Like, how are you feeling? Relieved? Because this was only like a week ago. Do you feel heard? Like, tell me your feelings about this.
Yeah, I feel heard for sure. I had to go on the stand in order to prove the DUI causing the serious injury piece. We had to prove that the injuries we received altered our lives in such a way that we couldn't function like we normally did on a daily basis. I broke like 9 bones, my clavicle and my sternum from the seatbelt. My wrist, on this wrist, you can see my scar there. My pinky, my middle finger. So my hands were completely wrapped up for 6 weeks. I couldn't use my hands at all for 6 weeks. So I couldn't.
You also mentioned that you went back to work. I'm guessing that you can't work right now because of the mental health aspect of it.
Well, I had started work as a legal transcriptionist, and so I can no longer do that because my typing is atrocious now. I used to be able to type really well and really fast, and because my fingers, they're just different. My hands are different now, so I've had to leave that line of work.
Okay, so my next question for you is, I'm grateful that your family got justice, because there's so many people, by the way, that do not.
Yeah.
Why have you decided that you wanted to start getting out there and being an advocate and telling the story. What do you think is the most important piece that people need to know?
Well, the most important piece, and it's very simple, drunk driving is 100% preventable. Mm-hmm. You just don't drive if you've been drinking. I think where we live, we live in kind of a vacation resort area. People like to come up here and have vacation or get married up here, have their bachelorette parties. We have a lot of wineries and breweries and whiskey places. So there's a lot of alcohol in our town. There's a lot of fancy drinks at the restaurants. But really nobody talks about like who's going to be the driver after you drink one of those very stiff drinks with your dinner. I honestly, I never thought about this before. You don't really know how that drink is going to affect your ability to react, to see things, and to make decisions if you choose to drive home after you've had a drink, even with dinner. So the thing that I think is really easy is that you just don't drive after drinking, or you just don't drink. Like maybe you're the one to drive everyone home then.
I will say this. I live in a beach town. I live by the beach, and there's, like when moms go out and they all like are like, oh, let's have like a group thing and have some wine. And then I'm like driving their kids around, and I was actually just having this conversation with one of my friends, and I think to myself, how do I know if my daughter gets in a car and the mother's been driving? I mean, I've made the mistake before. I'm going to be honest. And I've said this openly on podcast episodes before, where I drank and had a couple of drinks and drove my car. And I mean, I think most people have done it, but that's why I think I'm so passionate about sharing your story, or sharing Martin's story, who I will tell you is not a horrible person. Like he's not. He's a great person. He made a really horrific mistake. He holds himself accountable, though. Mm-hmm. He spent 20 years in prison. He now spends his life talking about to schools and all of this stuff. So sharing your story, Christine, is so important, because I'm hoping if I have a listener out there and they go, I mean, just even sharing it with me, today makes me rethink, like, I need to talk to my kids about this.
Right.
I need, like, last night, my daughter said, can you take me to the gym? This just happened last night. Yeah. And I had a drink, and I said, I can't take you to the gym. No, like, you can't go. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Or get a ride or take your bike. Yeah. So like you, I live in a beach town. Everybody's drinking, everybody's driving around, and I think about it all the time. And I think it affects me more in my old age. Yeah. Because I think our brains just work differently as we get older and we get more paranoid. But the good news is, and we have kids, by the way, right? You have 3, I have 2. Mm-hmm. I know there's something coming out, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's some kind of law now where you can't even turn on a car. That I've heard this in the next decade. Right. That you won't even be able to turn on a car if you've been drinking at all. Do you know if that's true? I'm finding out more about that. Can you talk about that?
I don't know a whole lot about that, but I know that there's something from MAD, the Mothers Against Drunk Driving group. Okay. They're actually having their 45th anniversary this year, and they're going to DC and having like an event next week to commemorate their 45th anniversary. But yeah, they're working with car manufacturers and different people to develop this technology that's going to be able to read, I think, your eye movements, and not let someone be able to start their car up if they've been drinking. So, but yeah, that's within the next 10 years. Mm-hmm. I
mean, too bad we didn't have this 10 years ago. I mean, think about how many lives are lost every year to drunk driving.
So many.
I don't know how many. I don't know the actual statistic. I'm almost afraid to find out, to be honest, because your husband must see it all the time.
A lot. Mm-hmm.
But I think this episode is really important for my listeners, I'm grateful that you're sharing all of this. I'm so sorry that you had to go through this, but I think it's important that you continue to share it, because the more you share your story, one person might rethink getting behind the wheel of a car.
That's my hope. It's not easy to talk about, and I've gotten to speak in my local town here a couple of times, 3 times, and it's sparked some great conversations. And other people who have maybe been in car crashes who, could empathize with me and could see themselves, their experience with mine and what I described, kind of what I went through physically and emotionally and mentally, not being able to care for my family. And it was a tough road, but, this bad thing happened in our lives, and I'm hoping to use it to help bring awareness and to help inspire others to just make better choices.
Well, I just want you to know, when I read your bio, I never answer somebody. I mean, you can tell my listeners, I get them, and I don't usually respond right away. And I saw yours and I said, you need to come on like right away, because I think your story is so important. And I think about the mom, there's 2 moms in my town that lost children to drunk drivers. And sadly, one of the drunk drivers that killed one of the children was driving on a suspended license, had already had an accident, and I don't know what happened, but had a suspended license. So I think everyone's stories are so important. We have to share these stories with our kids. Most importantly, I'm happy that MAD is getting these laws put into place, but I mean, that could happen years out. So just continue sharing. And I'm especially happy to hear, and I'm sad for the lady as well. I hope that, in her own time, she can reflect on what happened. But I'm happy that there was justice, because so many times in these kinds of accidents, there's no justice. And if you were to have had her go free and be driving a car and not serve any time, that's just re-triggering all of the trauma you already went through. So I hope little bit that you got gives you some peace to be able to kind of start anew, start over, and start the journey of getting, doing the work to get past it. Even though I know that's a silly thing to say, because you never will, but it's about living with that grief and that trauma, a new kind of life.
Yeah.
Right.
It does feel like a new kind of life. And that's what I've been thinking, this time of year with school starting back up, it does feel like a fresh start. It feels like, mom's January, but for us too, because of when it happened, there was a lot of healing that had to take place, but it's like, okay, it's a fresh start. We're still here. We get to do the fun things, and we have our son with us too.
And I say this all the time when I do these episodes that are hard. I mean, this is a hard story. It's, thank God everyone's okay, physically okay. There's going to take a lot of work mentally. But I think that you're going to find that your story is going to help your healing journey. And like I said, the more you tell this, the more you help one person. And then you go, oh my gosh, I just helped. Like today, I'm sure I'll get somebody reaching out to me saying, thanks to Christine, I decided not to get behind the wheel of a car. Or I talked to my child that night about the importance, because sometimes we forget. I forget with my daughter, but I don't forget because I'm super paranoid and a helicopter parent. That's all my trauma. But I don't always say the reminder, don't get in a car, don't get in a car with somebody that you think's been drinking. And I have a teenager, and we just have to talk to our kids about this. Yeah. It's so
make it normal conversation. Yeah. It's not like awkward to say, oh, you've been drinking, or, oh, I'll get a ride with my mom. I'll have her come pick me up. Or, if you just normalize it, then it makes it easier for your kids to talk about it amongst their peers. Well, I am happy that Nickel, can I call him Nickel? Yeah, for sure. Is Nickel doing good? He's doing great. Yep, he's doing great. Okay.
And
he has his driver's license and driving his car around. And one good blessing out of this is he lost about 18 hours of memory. So he has no recollection of getting in the car. He doesn't remember the crash at all. So that is a huge blessing.
I mean, it's like one of those things where it sounds like it's a miracle, because it is a miracle that everybody survived and was okay, but just that he also can't remember it, you know?
Yeah, he doesn't have that.
Could be so different.
I do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Christine, I'm so grateful to have met you today. You did so great. I know this was your first podcast. I'm so proud to know you. And I know my listeners are so happy you're doing okay and you're on that healing journey and that your family has found some justice. And tell your husband that I think he's awesome, and your son, because firefighters and paramedics are awesome. I live in LA.
Yeah.
We love our firefighters.
Right.
And so we're so grateful to people that choose those paths in life. So I'm so grateful I got to meet you today.
Well, thank you. And I love that you have this platform with the topics that you discuss here. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Everyone, keep going. You matter. Your story matters. Thanks, Christine.
Judging Meghan with Meghan Judge.